Okay, here we're going to look at trig function values and matching angle measures. And what we're really going to do is we are going to look at how to calculate these values when we are dealing with things like decimals, degree, minute, second, and or radicals. Okay, and so here we're generally going to be rounding to, say, the nearest decimal place, but we're also going to be using our calculator in order to find these values. So there's a couple things that we need to keep in mind. First of all, when we're talking about trig functions such as sine, cosine, or tangent, to get the value given an angle, we would use just the straight button. Okay. Now, when we're talking about reciprocals, we have this 1 over the function. So the reciprocals would be things like the cosecant, the secant, and the cotangent. So what am I talking about? If you look at your calculator here, you can see I have these 3 buttons: sine, cosine, and tangent. So these would just be the normal good old-fashioned buttons that we use. So for the reciprocals, if we remember, cosecant is the same as 1 over sine. So we would do 1 divided by and then use the trig function button. Okay? So you need to be very careful with what it is you're doing. Now, to get an angle measure given a trig value, we're going to use secant the trig function and then enter the value. Now, of course, this again is for the main. So this is for using sine, cosine, or tangent. That being said, if we have the reciprocal, then instead of where we just would input the trig function, we would input it as 1 over the value. And this would be used for cosecant, secant, or cotangent. So what do I mean by that? Well, if you take a look at your calculator, notice above my sine button is this little blue word that says sine to the -1. So we would use secant, which gives you all of your blue writing, and then click sine, which will give you sine to the -1. Now, just like before, the easiest thing to be able to do is to just simply show you with some examples. So I've got some here. And we're going to go ahead and find their trig values. So the first one I have here is cosine of 40.35. So this is just one of the normal trig functions, or the big ones. Notice it's got its own button. So we're going to click that button, and notice on my screen it opens the cosine, and then we're just going to type it as is, 40.35. Close your parenthesis and hit enter. Here we want 4 decimal places, so we would round this to 0.7621. So, in other words, what did we do? Well, this one we entered as is. No changes. Now, on this other one, not only do we want the cotangent, but we also want degree minute. Now remember, when we're entering in the degree, minute, seconds, we need to enter it in using all of it. So in this case, what we're going to do is we are going to use 1 divided by, and we're going to do the tangent, open up parentheses, of my degree, so 17 degree, 15 minutes, 0 seconds. And so that is what we're going to enter into the calculator. So let's see how that works. Alright, so here we're going to do 1 divided by, and you're going to open a parentheses. You're then going to hit your tangent button, and it opens that parentheses for you. Now you need to do degree, minute, second. So remember, it's 17. We're going to come to angle, so we go second, apps, brings up your angle, and we're going to use degrees. We have 15 minutes, so again, secant apps gives you that angle, and we're going to come down here to the second option and use that. And then we have 0 seconds, so remember your seconds is found over here on the plus sign. So we're going to use the green menu plus sign. We're going to close that parentheses and hit enter. Again, we're going to round to 4 decimal places, so in this case we have 3.2205. Now both of these were examples where I gave you the degree measure and we wanted the value. What happens when I give you the value and what I want is the degree measure? So we're going to look at these here. Okay. Let me do it this way. Okay. So here you can still see the calculator. And so for the first one, we want to find the degree measure when sine of theta is 0.5125. Okay. So with this, essentially, if you think about it, what we're doing is we are solving for your theta. So here, if I'm going to solve for theta, essentially what that means is I'm dividing everything by sine. So in this case, we're ending up with theta is going to be sine to the negative first of 0.5125. This is the math that we're actually looking at. So in order to do that in your calculator, notice above my sine, cosine, and tangent, I have this sine to the negative first, cosine to the negative first, tangent to the negative first. Since this is sine itself, I have to just simply go secant, hit my sine, and notice in my calculator I get sine to the negative first, and then type the value, 0.5125, close your parenthesis, and hit enter. So here I want to go to the nearest tenth of a degree, and so that would end up being 30.8 degrees. Now over here, let's look at secant. So what do we know about secant? Well, first we know that secant is the same as 1 over the cosine. Furthermore, in this problem, I have that my theta is going to be secant to the negative first of 1.279. Well, I don't actually have a secant button, at least not on this calculator. So in order to do that, I have to remember that I'm going to use the cosine, so use its partner, but then I have to do 1 over the value. So what I'm actually doing is I am doing cosine to the negative first of 1 divided by 1.279. So to do that in your calculator is fairly simple. We are going to go secant cosine, which opens that cosine to the negative first. And then we are going to go 1 divided by and then 1.279. Close your parentheses and hit enter. And there we have our degree is going to be 38.6 degrees. Now the last one is a little bit tricky because we've got this radical here, but again it's going to be similar in style. So we know that the cosecant is the same as 1 over sine. And in this case we know that my theta is going to be the cosecant to the negative first of 2 square roots of 3 over 3. What we also know is that we are going to have to do this one the same way we did this other one. So here my theta value is really going to be sine to the negative first of, and it's going to be 1 divided by, and then I'm going to open another parentheses to do 2 square roots of 3 over 3. So let's see what we get when we do that. Okay, so again here we're going to go second sine. And then in this case we're going to go 1 divided by and open a parentheses. Now because I'm trying to put all of this into a calculator, I'd go ahead and open a second. I'm going to do 2 and then second x squared is going to give me that square root. So 2 square roots of 3. Make sure you arrow out of your radical and close that parenthesis. And we're dividing that whole thing by 3. So we're going to close off the bottom, close the problem as a whole, and hit enter. And in this case, we come out with 60 degrees. So that's just a snapshot here of what you can expect when you are trying to find trig values given either the value itself or the degree measure. So if you have any questions, please let me know. If you feel like you need additional examples, let me know that too. Otherwise, I'll see you next time.